You bought the car. You make the payments every single month. You pay the insurance. You pay the registration taxes. You fill it with gas. You wash it. You maintain it. You take care of it. So here's the question that more and more car owners are starting to ask. Why are automakers increasingly deciding what you can and can't repair on your own vehicle? Right now, today, a growing battle is unfolding between automakers, independent repair shops, lawmakers, and millions of everyday car owners across this country. Supporters call it a fight for basic ownership rights. Critics say modern vehicles are quietly becoming locked ecosystems, controlled not by you, but by the manufacturer. And here's what's surprising. This debate isn't just about fixing a broken car. It's about who really controls the vehicle after you buy it. Today, we're breaking down exactly what's happening, why it matters to every single driver on the road, and why this issue is suddenly making national headlines. Because by the end of this video, you may look at car ownership very differently. Let's start with a simple question. When you buy a car, what exactly do you own? 20 years ago, most people would have laughed at that question. The answer seemed obvious, almost insulting to even bring up. You own the vehicle, you have the title, you have the keys. It's yours. End of story. But here's the thing. Modern vehicles aren't just mechanical machines anymore. And that changes the conversation in ways most people haven't fully thought through. Think about what a car actually is today. Today's vehicles contain dozens of electronic control units, each managing a different system within the car. We're talking about millions of lines of software code running inside a machine you drive to work every morning. Sensors everywhere, cameras, radar, wireless communication systems constantly exchanging data, advanced driver assistance features, lane keeping, automatic braking, adaptive cruise control, all running on software. Connected services linking your vehicle to manufacturer servers. Over-the-air software updates being pushed to your car remotely. And increasingly, access to those systems, the ability to diagnose them, repair them, or even understand what's happening inside them, has become the centerpiece of a major ownership debate. That's where the right to repair discussion begins. And that's why a question that once seemed ridiculous, what do you really own when you buy a car, is now being debated in state legislatures and in Washington, D.C. But before we explain why lawmakers and automakers are drawing battle lines over this issue, there's something most drivers don't realize about their own vehicle. Earlier, I mentioned that modern vehicles are rolling computers. I want to be clear, that's not an exaggeration or a dramatic way to get your attention. That's just the reality of what the automotive industry has become. A modern vehicle can contain dozens of interconnected computers, each communicating with the others, managing everything from engine performance and fuel delivery to stability control to the infotainment screen you use to navigate. These systems work together constantly. And when something goes wrong, the solution isn't always a wrench anymore. In fact, sometimes a wrench has nothing to do with it. Sometimes the solution requires software access, specialized diagnostic tools that communicate directly with the vehicle's systems, digital authorization from the manufacturer to perform certain procedures, access to proprietary technical information, repair procedures, calibration data, software update protocols. And that's where independent repair shops, the local mechanic you've trusted for years, say real challenges arise. Many independent shops argue that obtaining the tools, access, and information they need to properly diagnose and repair modern vehicles can be difficult, expensive, or in some cases restricted entirely. They argue this puts them at a disadvantage compared to franchise dealerships, which have direct manufacturer relationships and access to proprietary systems. Automakers, on the other hand, respond that vehicle systems have simply become more complex and more security sensitive than ever before. They argue that controlling access to certain systems isn't about limiting competition. It's about protecting the integrity of increasingly sophisticated technology. So, who's right? That's exactly where the debate gets genuinely interesting and genuinely important. Here's the thing. If this were only about mechanics arguing over diagnostic tools, it wouldn't be making national news. It wouldn't be landing in front of state legislatures. It wouldn't be attracting the attention of consumer advocacy groups, policy researchers, and federal agencies. But it has. And that's because this issue has grown far beyond repair shops and dealerships. Let's walk through the key perspectives driving this national conversation. Consumer groups argue that vehicle owners have a fundamental right to access information about products they purchased. They argue that when a manufacturer restricts access to repair data or diagnostic tools, it limits a consumer's ability to maintain property they legally own. Independent repair advocates argue that competition in the repair marketplace benefits consumers. When more shops can service a vehicle, the theory goes, prices are driven down, options increase, and consumers have more control over where they take their car and how much they pay. Then there's the manufacturer side. Automakers argue that unrestricted access to modern vehicle systems could create real safety risks. They point to cybersecurity concerns, the idea that opening up access to vehicle software creates new attack surfaces that bad actors could exploit. They argue that safeguards are necessary precisely because modern vehicles are so sophisticated. It's a genuine tension, not a manufactured one. And that's why lawmakers across the country have stepped in. Multiple states have considered or passed legislation focused on expanding vehicle repair access. Federal attention has grown as well. The debate has reached levels of government that rarely concern themselves with what happens in your local repair shop. And that's why this story matters far beyond the automotive industry. Because it raises a much bigger question. Where does ownership end and manufacturer control begin? Quick note, if you enjoy breaking down the stories shaping the future of the auto industry, make sure you're subscribed to Car Exposed. We focus on the stories behind the headlines, not just what happened, but why it matters and what it means for you as a driver and a consumer. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's keep going. Now let's talk about the part that often gets glossed over in these conversations. Money. Because whenever major industries fight this hard over access and control, money is almost always somewhere close to the center of the story. Let's think about the scale here. Dealership service departments are, for many franchises, a primary profit center. Service and parts revenue can represent a substantial portion of a dealership's total income, often significantly more than new vehicle sales margins alone. Independent repair shops represent a massive industry in their own right. There are tens of thousands of independent shops across the country, employing millions of workers, generating hundreds of billions of dollars in economic activity. Now consider everything that falls under the umbrella of vehicle service: diagnostic procedures, software updates, safety system calibrations, routine maintenance, warranty repairs, out-of-warranty repairs, replacement parts, labor, all of it. Every single service touchpoint across the life of a vehicle represents revenue flowing somewhere in the automotive ecosystem. When access to certain procedures or information is restricted, the question of where that revenue flows becomes significant. Supporters of expanded repair access argue that greater competition in the repair marketplace ultimately benefits consumers. More shops capable of servicing a vehicle means more price competition, more options, and less dependency on any single channel. Automakers argue that specialized systems require specialized expertise, and that ensuring repairs are performed correctly protects both the vehicle and the driver. Here's what's worth noting. Both of those statements can be true at the same time. Modern vehicles genuinely are complex, specialized expertise genuinely matters, and competition genuinely does tend to benefit consumers. The debate isn't about which of those things is true. It's about where the line should be drawn. And regardless of where you stand on that question, one thing is clear. The financial stakes are enormous for every party involved, which is exactly why neither side is backing down. Remember that question from the very beginning of this video? What do you really own when you buy a car? This is why that question resonates. This is why car owners, people who have no interest in following legislative debates or reading policy papers, are starting to pay attention to this issue. Because it connects directly to their lives. Most drivers don't follow repair access legislation. Most drivers don't spend their weekends reading about automotive data policy. Most drivers don't have opinions about what diagnostic information manufacturers should be required to share. But every driver understands a repair bill. Every driver understands that moment when the service advisor walks back into the waiting room with a number that's higher than you expected. Every driver understands being told the only place that can fix their car is the dealership. Every driver understands being stranded. Every driver understands the anxiety of a dashboard warning light and not knowing where to turn. And that's why this conversation, despite being rooted in complex policy, technology, and competitive business dynamics, resonates with such a wide audience. It's ultimately about something very simple. A person bought a vehicle. They want to be able to use it, maintain it, and fix it on their terms. And as vehicles become increasingly connected, increasingly software-driven, increasingly integrated with manufacturer ecosystems, the question of what owning that vehicle actually means becomes more complicated, not less. This issue isn't going away. If anything, it's going to become more relevant with every new model year. To fully understand this debate, we have to take the manufacturer perspective seriously, not dismiss it, not caricature it, actually look at what they're arguing, because some of it is genuinely worth understanding. Automakers aren't arguing that car owners don't deserve to maintain their vehicles. Their argument is more specific than that. It comes down to the nature of what modern vehicles have become. When a car contained a carburetor, a distributor, and a mechanical throttle linkage, anyone with mechanical knowledge and the right tools could work on it. The systems were understandable. They were physical. They were largely self-contained. That world is gone. Today's vehicles contain safety systems of extraordinary sophistication. Automatic emergency braking, lane departure intervention, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring. Systems that, if improperly calibrated or accessed, could potentially behave in unexpected ways. Manufacturers point to cybersecurity as well. Modern vehicles are connected. They communicate wirelessly. They receive over-the-air updates. They're integrated into broader digital ecosystems. And manufacturers argue that this connectivity, as useful as it is, creates potential attack surfaces that need to be protected, and that unrestricted access to vehicle systems creates cybersecurity risks that could affect not just the vehicle owner, but potentially other people on the road. These aren't trivial concerns. They're genuine technical and safety considerations that deserve to be part of the conversation. Now, critics of the manufacturer position argue that safety concerns, while real, can also be used as a convenient justification for business decisions that happen to protect revenue streams. That's also a fair argument. The truth is probably more nuanced than either side wants to admit in a press release. This isn't a story with clear villains and obvious heroes. It's a story about genuinely competing interests, ownership rights, consumer access, safety integrity, cybersecurity, and competitive market dynamics, all colliding at the same time. Understanding that complexity is what actually lets you form a real opinion about it. Here's what I think is the most important part of this entire conversation. And it's the part that gets the least attention. This debate may not actually be primarily about repairs, at least not in the long run. The repair access fight is real, and it matters today, but it may also be an early signal of something much larger that's coming. Think about the trajectory of the automotive industry. Cars are becoming more connected every year. Software is becoming more central to what a vehicle is and how it functions. Over-the-air updates mean manufacturers can change what a vehicle does. Add features, remove features, modify behavior after the sale. Subscription models are emerging around features that were once simply built into a car you bought. Data generated by vehicles, driving behavior, location, preferences, habits is becoming increasingly valuable. The relationship between a car owner and the manufacturer of their vehicle is changing in ways that go far beyond whether your mechanic can access the diagnostic port. The repair debate is, in a sense, the opening chapter of a much bigger story about what vehicle ownership looks like as the automobile becomes more digital, more connected, and more dependent on ongoing manufacturer relationships. Who controls the software that runs your car? Who owns the data your car generates? What happens when a manufacturer discontinues support for an older model's connected systems? What does it mean to own something that requires a continuous relationship with the entity that made it? These are the questions that are going to define vehicle ownership for the next generation of drivers. And the repair debate happening right now. It's where that conversation starts. So let's go back to where we started. When you buy a vehicle, what exactly are you buying? A machine? Yes. A computer? Increasingly, yes. Something you completely and fully own. In the same way your grandparents owned their vehicles? That answer is becoming less clear with every passing model year. Modern vehicles exist somewhere in a space that older definitions of ownership weren't built to describe. You own the physical object, but access to what makes that object function, the software, the data, the diagnostic systems, the ability to service it fully, that's where the debate lives. That's what lawmakers are trying to figure out. That's what automakers are trying to protect. That's what repair shops and consumer groups are fighting to expand. And that's what millions of car owners are starting to realize affects them every time they get a repair estimate, every time they get a warning light, every time they ask themselves whether they're really in control of something they worked hard to buy. The answer to that question will shape vehicle ownership for years, maybe decades, to come. And I think it's a conversation worth having. Now I want to hear from you. Should vehicle owners have broad access to repair information, diagnostic tools, and the data their own vehicles generate? Or do automakers have valid concerns about safety, cybersecurity, and the complexity of modern vehicles that justify certain restrictions? There's no easy answer. That's why I'm asking. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you enjoy automotive stories that go deeper than horsepower numbers and 0 to 60 times, subscribe to Car Exposed. Because sometimes the most important stories in the car industry have nothing to do with what's under the hood. They're about who really controls the car after it leaves the showroom. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.